it on?
Yep.
Okay. Nehemiah chapter 3. Let's see, it'll be trace, right? Uno, dos, trace. So we're going to begin the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem. I've got a handout here. There is information on the back as well. But we'll mainly be using the front with the map, the map side. And I did this basically for us to just kind of have a visual reference of chapter 3. I've got the map of Jerusalem up here as well, just to kind of give us a visual reference. When I began getting this ready this week, I really didn't think that chapter 3 would be that involved. I really kind of just thought we would read through it and move on to chapter 4. But the more I started reading about this and thinking about it, we will be just in chapter 3 today. It may go quicker than I think it will, but I guess we'll see. And if we get done early, then that'll be what? 3 weeks in a row we'll have gotten done early. If we go long today, we'll blame Terry because he's not been here in a while. So good to have Terry back and Ron back. He said that Kay's down and Pat Upmore is sick as well. So anyway, so for reference and just to remember, from the best that I can tell, the old Jerusalem that we are rebuilding is about the size of New Hebron. Now, exactly how, I'm just trying to give us some references to the size of the city. Not very big, but again, we're talking a half mile wide and a half mile, like a half mile square, roughly is the area that this old Jerusalem is, the old city. Now, obviously, the map that I have up here is current day Jerusalem, but just for reference from your map, roughly the area that we're talking about is the Kidron Valley and the Valley of Gehenna, and then roughly up this way, you see that green, that stretch of green up along the top there. Roughly that's that area. Maybe not quite this far out, but I'm not really for sure exactly how big. But as you see here, this is the Temple Mount, which is shown on your paper here, and so this is the reference that we will use. Everything will be referenced from the Temple Mount. But this, I don't know if you can tell, if you guys can read maps, topography maps, but I don't know if you can see the contour and how the city rises up. I don't know if you can tell that or not from this map. I can from the smaller picture, but the city and the Temple Mount area is up on a higher elevation than the area around it. This is about 2,400 feet. This down here is about 2,200. So just in this short distance, there's a 200 feet drop. And then it comes back up. This is a valley here. This is a valley here, but it's harder to tell with the.
Is it higher than the Mount of Olives?
The Mount of Olives would be about the same height as the Temple Mount. And the Mount of Olives would actually be just across this Kidron Valley right over here. So, I mean, the Mount of Olives was just here, which is probably a mile or less from the Temple Mount. So, anyway, this kind of gives us a general idea of what our map is showing. So, last week, Nehemiah had come into Jerusalem. He had taken a midnight tour of the outside of the city to look at the walls and see the condition that the city was in, which that was mainly what chapter 2 was about. And remember, he did run into some opposition from Sanballat and Tobiah and a man named Geshem. They're going to cause trouble during this entire process of rebuilding these walls. One other thing to remember, and we'll talk about this later as well, but it only took 52 days to build the wall. So everybody, which we will read here in chapter 3, there was a lot of people that got involved in the rebuilding, and a lot of people put their efforts in, and so it only took 52 days, roughly from August 1st, 445 BC, to September 21st of 445 BC, which we'll read that in chapter 6. But anyway, but throughout chapter 3, we have a list of names that, quite frankly, don't mean anything to us. I mean, they're just names of people that helped build. But as I mentioned in Ezra, oftentimes in the book of Ezra, chapter 2, chapter 7, chapter 8, and chapter 10, those chapters are basically lists of names. And put yourself in the place of those families, and you are reading this list that God determined that he would write down and record, and you can look and say, there's my great-great-grandfather listed here helping to rebuild this city, the city of God. Or there's my uncle from my mother's side. He's listed right here. Now again, for us today it doesn't mean anything, but if you place yourself in the lineage of these families, you can get excited and say, God thought it fit to put my uncle's name here, or my great-grandfather's name, or whatever, you understand. Kind of the opposite of Ezra chapter 10, when you got a list of all these men that married pagan women, and they had to get a divorce, which you don't want, you wouldn't want your name in that book, but God thought it fit to put those names in there as well. So anyway, again, while the names may not mean anything to us, I want us to understand that a good group of people from all walks of life, which we will see, came together for this one cause, and that was to rebuild the walls and the gates of the city that they loved. Perhaps they lived in. Some people didn't even live in Jerusalem; they lived nearby, but they all put their task in, or their work in, to the task of rebuilding the wall. Now, I will say from our map, if you look at the very top, near the top center, you see the sheep gate. So that's where we're going to start in verse 1, and we're going to work around in a counterclockwise motion, and Nehemiah is going to tell us about the different work that goes on in the city, beginning at the sheep gate in a counterclockwise rotation. All right? Everybody okay so far? And I do have the verses marked down where the gates are mentioned. Not every gate is mentioned, and not every landmark is mentioned in the scripture, but this hopefully will give you a visual idea of what we're talking about here as we go through. All right, Nehemiah chapter 3, and this is the list of the people involved in this rebuilding. And we notice first off something special about this first man, Eliashib. Whoop, wrong button. Hang on.
Nehemiah 3.
There we go.
Then Eliashib the high priest rose up with his brethren the priests, and they builded the sheep gate. They sanctified it, and set up the doors of it, even unto the tower of Meah they sanctified it, unto the tower of Hananiel.
So first off, the first man mentioned that's involved is the high priest, the one who is in charge of the temple, the one who is in charge of the sacrifices, and making sure that the law of Moses was followed inside the tabernacle or the temple when sacrifices and the work of worship was going on. Now, this man, would have been easy for him to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not suited for this. I have responsibilities in the temple. And perhaps we could have given him a pass. But we see here the first one mentioned is the high priest. And then with him rose the other priests. So understand there was a hierarchy to the priesthood. You did have the high priest, who was the man that was to go in each year on the Day of Atonement and offer the sacrifice for the sins of the people. He was the man. But then under him were priests that would take turns or work shifts serving in the temple, doing the things that needed to be done. But the high priest was the man, you could say, in charge. So not only do we see the high priest working here, beginning at the sheep gate, but then all the other priests seemingly joined in and helped him build the sheep gate and the walls thereabout up to the Tower of Meah and the Tower of Hananiel. Well, throughout the chapter 3, there's people working on different sections, kind of like the railroad, working from both ends, and seemingly they met in the middle. I don't know how that worked. Golden Spike. So anyway, but there's going to be many different groups of people working on various stages throughout and around the entirety of the city at the same time. But here at the sheep gate, this is where the priests begin to work, and they work, again, to the west, or to the Tower of Meah and to the Tower of Hananiel. And I do have on the back some descriptions, not of every landmark, but of some of the landmarks and what they represent. understand that the towers of the city would be towers for lookouts for centuries of the army to go up and keep a lookout so that they could see advancing armies and whatnot. So that's what these towers are for, is for lookouts. Number two, verse 2.
And next unto him builded the men of Jericho, and next to them builded Zakur the son of Imri. But the fish gate did the sons of Hasanaah build, who also laid the beams thereof, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. And next unto them repaired Meremoth the son of Urijah the son of Koz. And next unto them repaired Meshullam the son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabeel. And next unto them repaired Zadok the son of Bana.
Now, Meremoth, you may remember that name, maybe you don't. But let's turn to Ezra chapter 8 for a moment. Ezra chapter 8. Now, I'm going to take you back about 14 years or so, or for us, perhaps 8 weeks. It was about 8 weeks ago we were in Ezra chapter 8. And if you could remember, Ezra was laden with many precious stones, precious metals, gold and silver, and a treasury that he took with him from Shushan to Jerusalem. You may remember that. And it took 4 months for Ezra to carry these precious metals to Jerusalem for refurbishing and helping to refurbish the temple. And there was accounting made. Once they got to Jerusalem, they went to this man in chapter 8, verse 33. They went to this man named Meremoth, who was the son of Uriah the priest, and with him Eleazar, the son of Phinehas, and they were the ones that gave an accounting for all of the precious metals and all the things that the king gave to Ezra to take with him to Jerusalem. And when they go to Jerusalem, they find Meremoth, and he is the one that takes accounting of all of this precious metal. That was in, where did I write that down? In about 458 BC. So fast forward 14 years later to Nehemiah chapter 3, and here's the same man Meremoth. Now, not only was he faithful to give an accounting for all the things that the king sent by the hand of Ezra, 14 years later, he's got his hand to the plow, helping to build the walls of the city that he loves. And again, so these may be just random lists of names, but we see here the faithfulness of the people and the dedication of the people to rebuild the city that they love, the city of God. And so just pointing out Meremoth, we're going to read about another man here in a little bit that is mentioned in Ezra as well. But I wanted to bring that to our attention, that here's the man Meremoth is still faithful to the work of the Lord and faithful to the work of the city here 14 years later, which again, chapter 3 of Nehemiah is about 14 years after Ezra chapter 8. All right? Verse 5.
And next unto them the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles put not their necks to the work of their Lord.
Well, so the Tekoites, they went to work, but their nobles or their leaders, they didn't. Now, how would you like to have your name listed in the Tekoites, and then they're going to say, oh, yeah, you guys were the ones that didn't help? I think maybe perhaps it was by the grace of God that he didn't list their names. Can you imagine the shame? Look at all these people helping to rebuild the city, and your mention is not even doing anything. So, anyway. But Tekoites were people that lived in the city of Tekoa, which was a little bit south of Bethlehem, about 6 or 8 miles south of Jerusalem. And but here we see some of their nobles or their leaders are not helping. Now, we will find out later in chapter 6 or chapter 8 that essentially Sanballat and Tobiah paid them off and wouldn't, and so they took the money or made a promise to Tobiah that they wouldn't help, and so we see here this played out in chapter 3. Again, we'll read about that in a few chapters. Verse 6.
Moreover, the old gate repaired Jehoiada the son of Paseah, and Meshullam the son of Besadiah. They laid the beams thereof, and set up the doors thereof, and the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. And next unto them repaired Melatiah the Gibeonite, and Jadon the Meronothite, the men of Gibeon and of Mizpah, unto the throne of the governor on this side the river.
Now, these are names of men, but they're also names of cities where they lived. And so these two men, they were from Gibeah and Mizpah. They didn't live in Jerusalem, but they came to help rebuild the city. And again, I didn't say this today, but remember, while they may not have actually lived in Jerusalem, Jerusalem to the Jews was the city of... Go Cubs, go. Is everybody's...
I thought it had on silent.
Janet, are you calling Mike? They are as far away from each other as possible. But understand, even though you didn't live in Jerusalem, Jerusalem being the city of God, there was still this importance to the city of Jerusalem. And I liken it, to Robinson. Nope, the people who don't live in Robinson, why, they love Robinson, right? And they would come and do anything they could to save it. Maybe not, but you understand. It is the county seat, by the way. We don't have any, well, Palestine. Palestine, yeah. You guys care about Robinson, though, don't you?
Can watch the sports.
Oh, yeah. Mike does come and watch the high school team. Anyway, maybe that was a bad analogy. Maybe there is a lot of animosity between all the cities in the county. I don't know. Anyway. What's that?
She's got family that lives
Yeah, but she didn't act like she really cared.
here.
Oh. Anyway. Just understand that the people did have their hearts in Jerusalem, even if they didn't actually live in the city. Verse 8. Are you doing all right following along the map here, if you are? Okay. Verse 8.
Next unto him repaired Uzziel, the son of Harahiah, of the goldsmiths. Next unto him also repaired Hananiah, the son of one of the apothecaries. And they fortified Jerusalem unto the broad wall.
Now, so you see, you got goldsmiths working here, you got the priests working, you got the apothecaries, which those are perfumers or what we call today the drugstore. Perhaps you could say pharmacists, these ones that perhaps mix different scents and odors to make either a perfume or perhaps some type of drug cocktail or something. But again, all walks of life are here working. And the broad wall would be that wall along the east or the west side from the Tower of Furnaces down to the Valley Gate. That's the broad wall. And legend has it that wall was about 20 feet wide or thick, however you want to look at it. So this was a large wall. Now, I will say, it would have been running along this side of the city, and it was much easier for the armies to attack from the west because of the topography of the land. And so this was the most vulnerable side of Jerusalem, was the western side of the city. And so hence the long broad wall that we have here, because this would be the easiest place to advance and to come into the city. So again, it's not shown necessarily on this map. I'm just trying to give you an idea that it is along this western side. Because again, these two deep valleys here, the Kidron Valley and the Gehenna Valley, were very steep, and it was very, very rocky to come up either way. And also, Gehenna is where they threw the trash, which we will talk about when we get to the dung gate. But it would have been right in here somewhere. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get there. So again, the broad walls along the western side, and again, about 20 feet in, I don't know, is that thickness? I guess that would be thickness. So, verse 9.
And next unto them repaired Rephaiah the son of Hur, the ruler of the half part of Jerusalem. And next unto them repaired Jedaiah the son of Heramoth, even over against his house. And next unto him repaired Hattush the son of Hashabniah. Malchijah the son of Harim, and Hashub the son of Pahath Moab repaired the other piece, and the tower of the furnaces.
Now the tower of the furnaces is up there in the top, well, toward the west or the left side of the picture, on the top of that left side. That's where the ovens were. That's where the bakers were, and so they would have a furnace with a stack, and so that's hence the tower of furnaces would be there, because that's where the bakers would work. I don't know if it was named Baker Street. I don't know, but that's where the bakers were. Maybe Jerry Rafferty worked there.
Muffin Man Lane.
Yeah, Muffin Man Lane. Yeah. And the Doughboy, light crust Doughboys. Everybody has something to say. But that's the Tower of Furnaces. The Tower of Ovens would be in that location, which is shown there on the map. Verse 12.
And next unto him repaired Shallum, the son of Halahesh, the ruler of the half part of Jerusalem, he and his daughters. The valley gate repaired Hanan, and the inhabitants of Zanoah, they built it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof, and 1,000 cubits on the wall unto the dung gate.
So you notice all the gates have bars and locks. You know, I mean, they mentioned that not only did they repair the gate, but they repaired the bars and the locks. I thought that was interesting that those would even be mentioned, because it would be assumed that there would be bars and locks on a gate, but nevertheless. Now, you see the wall along the bottom side or the south side of the city. That is the wall that it's talking about there in verse 13. And it's 1,000 cubits, which is about 1,500 feet long. And that would be along the southern edge of the city, perhaps in some way along this, where this highway is represented, as a kind of a rough idea of where that would be. Again, going now to the dung gate, which was down here in the far southeast corner of the city. This is where the city dump was, here in this valley of Gehenna, on the far southeast corner of the city. So the dung gate or refuge gate would be where they would throw the trash, and this area would be burning continually. And so when Christ would speak of hell, he would reference the valley of Gehenna, because people were fully aware of what went on there, with not only the ravenous dogs and animals that were there eating of the refuge, but the smoke that continued to rise, the worms and the nastiness of a trash dump, perhaps not in our day, but in those days. And so that was down here. That's why it's called the dung gate, because that's where they threw the trash outside the city. All right.
Next to the King's Garden, which I find.
Well, yeah, it
strange.
is close to the King's Garden.
Well, he's got to have his
Yeah. But let me see how.
fertilizer.
Yeah, and again, that's 200 feet below the actual city, because the actual city is about 2,400 feet. So that valley here, I guess I could just do that, so you know where I'm pointing. Yeah, it all goes downhill. So now perhaps, I don't know, but perhaps the prevailing winds of that area with the valleys would have blown the smoke to the east and to the north and away from the city. That might be, perhaps that's why they have it there, and that's why the king could have his garden near there, because the prevailing winds would blow the stench and the smoke away from that area. I don't know, but that would be my guess.
Sounds logical.
Of course, even if the winds came from the north, it would actually then blow them to the south, away from the city too. So, and perhaps the prevailing winds from that area do come from the north, but I don't know. I'm no meteorologist. Huh? The garden is inside the gate. Well, it is kind of hard to tell exactly where, because the king's garden is named outside that wall. So, good point. I don't know. Maybe the king's garden was outside.
I mean, he probably never went to it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's right.
he looked at it from his tower. All right, verse 14.
But the dung gate repaired Malchiah, the son of Rechab, the ruler of part of Beth Hasaram. He built it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. But the gate of the fountain repaired Shallun, the son of Kol-Hoseh, the ruler of part of Mizpah. He built it, and covered it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof, and the wall of the pool of Siloah by the king's garden, and unto the stairs that go down from the city of David.
So again, understand that on that east side right here is so steep. Can you everybody see my point where I didn't think about doing that. It's so steep there that there would be a set of stairs, or a stone stair, obviously, going down from the city down into the valley. So that would be where the kings, or where these stairs are that are mentioned here in verse 15, would be somewhere in that southeast corner or on the east side near the south end, somewhere in there. And again, I don't think, yeah, the stairs are shown there. Okay. All right. Moving on to verse number 16.
After him repaired Nehemiah the son of Azbuk, the ruler of the half part of Bethzur, unto the place over against the sepulchres of David, and to the pool that was made, and unto the house of the mighty. After him repaired the Levites, Rehum the son of Bani. Next unto him repaired Hashabiah the ruler of the half part of Keilah, in his part. After him repaired their brethren, Babai the son of Henadad, the ruler of the half part of Keilah. And next to him repaired Ezer the son of Jeshua, the ruler of Mizpah, another piece over against the going up to the armory at the turning of the wall.
Now you notice there, Ezar is the son of Joshua, who was the ruler of Mizpah. So here we have perhaps the mayor's son of Mizpah going and helping put in work to rebuild the city. Again, I'm saying that to point out that people from all walks of life involved themselves in the work of rebuilding the city. It wasn't the laborers, it wasn't carpenters, it wasn't masons. It was people from all walks of life were coming to do this work. And quite frankly, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember reading anybody being a mason or a carpenter. But I do remember priests, I do remember goldsmiths, I do remember apothecaries being involved, and sons of mayors or sons of governors, and even some of the governors perhaps. So I'm not discounting the fact that there probably were masons and carpenters involved, but I don't see them being called out and named by their occupation. And so again, it's the same picture of us as the church. It takes every one of us being involved in the work of the church to build the church up. Shouldn't be just a select group of people, but it should be everyone pitching in to do something for the church. And this Nehemiah chapter 3 is a perfect picture of how the church should be in building not only the church building and the church grounds, but the things of the church and building the kingdom of God. And so we have people from all walks of life pitching in to do the work. Verse number, I forgot where I was at. 20, verse 20.
After him Baruch the son of Zabbai earnestly repaired the other piece, from the turning of the wall unto the door of the house of Eliashib the high priest. After him repaired Meremoth the son of Urijah, the son of Koz, another piece.
Now, I started too soon, sorry.
From the door of the house of Eliashib even to the end of the house of Eliashib.
So there's Meremoth again, verse 21. He was mentioned in verse 4, working on somewhere along the northwestern part of the city. And apparently at some point he got done with that work, and instead of quitting, he went down and now is repairing places along the eastern side of the city. This is the same Meremoth that we read about in Ezra chapter 8, that we read about in Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 4. Now we read about him in Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 21. This was a good guy, as long as his heart was in the right place, which I'm sure it was. But again, he had been involved in the city for at least 14 years that we know of. And when Ezra gets to Jerusalem, he's the one that Ezra goes to make an accounting for all the goods and services that the king sent by Ezra's hand. So Meremoth ought to be a man that you name your son after. He's a good guy. Stays busy in the work of the Lord, apparently, and is trusted. But again, we see him in verse 4, and now we see him in verse 21. So apparently at some point, perhaps, he got done with his work on the one side of the city and went and helped on the other side. We know it's the same guy because he's got the same father and the same grandfather. Verse 22. We're about done here and moving right along.
And after him repaired the priests, the men of the plain. After him repaired Benjamin and Hushab over against their house. After him repaired Azariah the son of Maaseiah the son of Ananiah by his house. After him repaired Binnui the son of Henadad, another piece, from the house of Azariah unto the turning of the wall, even unto the corner. Palal the son of Uzai over against the turning of the wall, and the tower which lieth out from the king's high house, that was by the court of the prison. After him Pedaiah the son of Parosh.
do you see where we're at on the map? Or I don't know if you're following along, but so you see where the turning of the wall is there from the fountain gate and then to the water gate, those two corners there, and apparently that's what he's referring to here, the turning of the wall. So, moving forward, verse 26, yeah.
Moreover, the Nethinims dwelt in Ophel, unto the place over against the water gate toward the east, and the tower that lieth out.
And there was a tower at Ophel, which is on the map there. And again, another defensive tower for a century to be in to look for advancing armies, that type of thing. But this Ophel is a place inside the city, kind of like what we would call a suburb, perhaps but even though it's a small city. But Ophel is just an area in that city, and there's a tower there. And perhaps it was named because of that tower. Verse 26 or 27? 27. Not doing a
After
very good
them the
job of that.
Tekoites repaired another piece, over against the great tower that lieth out, even unto the wall of Ophel.
So here again, we see the Tekoites, which were mentioned in verse 5, working in the same area that Meremoth was earlier, and they had moved over into the western or to the eastern side of the city at some point. So again, just because the people are perhaps getting done with their project in one area of the town does not mean that they just go home and wait for everybody else to get finished, but they actually continue to roll up their sleeves and go and help the other groups rebuild. So I just found it interesting that, some of these people are mentioned twice, and I don't think that accounts for laziness of the others. I just think some portions of the city were more difficult to rebuild than others. And I would think that on this eastern side, with such a steep grade, that perhaps the east side of the city was very difficult to rebuild because of the steepness of the landscape. And so perhaps that's why we read of people coming from the west side, which would perhaps have been much easier to build because of the landscape, that they now come over and help the people on the east side of the city. But again, it's not people just going home and waiting for those guys to get done. Everybody continues to work and pitch in. Now, again, this is an overview of the rebuild. We'll get in the nitty-gritty in the later chapters, but understand that they faced a lot of opposition to the work they were doing. And at some point, Nehemiah is going to have them working with a hammer or a chisel or whatever in one hand and a sword in the other. And he's also got to have people standing as sentries or watches because of the opposition that they're going to face rebuilding the city. So it's not an easy task to just go and do it. But the fact is that it only took 52 days tells us that there's a lot of people involved. But then I wonder how quicker it could have gotten done had they not had the opposition of the people against them, which, again, we'll talk about that in the coming chapters. But I want us to understand that this was no easy task, even though it did take 52 days to do. Anyway, verse 28.
From above the horse gate repaired the priests, every one over against his house. After them repaired Zadok the son of Immer over against his house. After him repaired also Shemaiah the son of Shechaniah, the keeper of the east gate. After him repaired Hananiah the son of Shelemiah, and Hananiah the sixth son of Zalaph, another piece. After him repaired Meshullam the son of Berechiah over against his chamber. After him repaired Malchiah the goldsmith's son unto the place of the Nethinims, and of the merchants over against the gate Mifkad, and to the going up of the corner, and between the going up of the corner unto the sheep gate repaired the goldsmiths and the merchants.
All right. So we went in a counterclockwise motion around the city, describing who was involved in the rebuilding. Again, it did take 52 days, August 1st, 445, to September 21st of 445 BC. And we'll read that in a later chapter. Let's see. Anybody have any comments or questions? Hi. Yeah. All right. Well, we're kind of in this spot where chapter 3 took too long to actually start into chapter 4, so we'll just quit there. But